There's something about certain people that leaves you quietly amazed. They walk into a room, and without saying a single word, the energy around them starts to shift. They don't rush. They don't try to prove anything. They aren't loud or dramatic. Yet somehow, everything around them begins to settle, and things seem to fall gently into place. You find yourself wondering, how do they manage to move like that? Why does everything feel so natural and light for them, while you are struggling just to keep up? The truth is, it's not luck. It's not some secret advantage. And it's definitely not because their life is easier than yours. What you are seeing is something subtle but powerful. The grace of someone who has learned how to move without clinging. A kind of quiet strength that comes from letting go of the weight we are not meant to carry. They might still be working hard. They might still be facing challenges. But they don't carry their struggle like a badge. They don't push or pull for attention. Their energy is rooted in something deeper, not in fear, but in clarity. And that's what makes it all feel effortless. This is the kind of energy Krishna lived with every single day. Not the kind that dominates others, but the kind that acts with complete presence, without being controlled by what may or may not come next. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna something that quietly turns our whole way of living on its head. He says, "The one who performs their duty without attachment reaches the highest." It's not just spiritual poetry. It's a different way of walking through life. Because most of us have been trained in the opposite. We've been taught to chase, to compete, to measure ourselves against results. If things go well, we feel worthy. If they don't, we carry the weight of failure like it's who we are. So we hold on too tightly, to plans, to people, to success, to identity, believing that if we can just control everything, we'll finally feel secure. But the more we hold, the heavier it gets. And the more effort we put in, the more drained we become. Until even the things we once loved start to feel like burdens. That's when Krishna's words stop sounding philosophical and start sounding like the only way to survive. Because he never told Arjuna to stop acting. He never asked him to give up. He simply asked him to let go of the one thing making it all so heavy, the attachment to the outcome. Not because the result doesn't matter, but because the result was never really ours to control. Think about that for a second. You are responsible for how you act, not for how it turns out. You are asked to give your best, not to predict the result. And it's in that space between effort and outcome where real peace lies. The moment you stop trying to force things into place, your energy shifts. You stop seeking approval in every action. You stop building your worth on someone else's reaction. You begin to move with a kind of quiet calm, not because you stopped caring, but because you started trusting something greater than your ego. That kind of trust, in your path, in your dharma, in the deeper rhythm of life, is what makes your work feel light, even when it's hard. That's what Krishna was showing Arjuna. He didn't say, "Avoid the battle." He said, "Step into it, but don't carry the fear of winning or losing. Just act from that quiet place inside you that already knows, this is my path." Now just imagine if you could live like that. Imagine doing your work not to prove something, but simply because it brings you alive. Imagine entering a conversation without needing to win. Imagine helping someone without expecting anything in return. Imagine building something, not to impress anyone, but because it reflects who you really are. That kind of action doesn't need noise. It doesn't need performance. It moves like water, silently and steadily. Yet it has the strength to cut through the hardest rock. We've been taught to push, but Krishna teaches us to flow. We've been taught to cling. He teaches us to surrender. We've been taught to obsess over the outcome. He shows us the power of staying present in action. And once you begin to live that way, even for a moment, everything feels different. You stop overthinking every step. You stop exhausting yourself trying to control what's out of your hands. You begin to walk with a kind of ease, not because you know where every step leads, but because you know who's walking. Someone who is no longer driven by fear. Someone who's finally at peace with the unknown. That's what makes life feel lighter. Not because you're doing less, but because you've stopped dragging along the weight of expectations. Many of us think letting go means giving up. But Krishna shows us that real letting go is the beginning of true mastery. When you stop clenching the future, your hands are finally free to shape the present. When you stop performing for validation, your words begin to carry truth. When you stop chasing applause, your presence itself becomes calm and magnetic. Not loud, but solid, like a flame that stands steady in the wind. That's the meaning of quiet power. It's not being passive. It's not stepping back from life. It's being fully present, without being owned by pressure. It's doing your part, deeply, honestly, but then letting the outcome go, like a humble offering placed into the hands of something bigger. And when you start living like that, people will notice. They may not know exactly what changed, but they'll say, "You make it look so easy." And you'll know, it's not that life became easier. It's that you stopped carrying what wasn't yours. You stopped tying your worth to how things turn out. You stopped letting the past control your steps. You stopped trying to earn peace through perfection. And in that space, something opened up. A rhythm, a stillness, a power that doesn't shout or demand, but simply stands, grounded and real. That's what Krishna embodied. And it's something you can grow into you. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to race through life just to feel seen. You just need to show up, do your part, and leave the rest, again and again, in the hands of something higher. And over time, what once felt like pressure begins to feel like peace. What once felt like survival starts to feel like flow. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped fighting it. And that shift, from fear to trust, from gripping to letting go, that's the real path. It's not always visible, but it's always enough.